Alright, welcome back. I removed the double unit mod and it seems that our unit health is now acceptable. Still, of course, this is 4500 and the cannons also have 4800, so I guess it's okay since Carl doesn't have any mount. Crossbowman 8000. I'm a bit surprised that the health for Carl Franz is so low early on, but apparently it's what the radius mod makers want. And of course we need to recruit stuff. We have free company militia. How do they stack up? Okay, yeah, that swordsmen appear to be much stronger. How about Assad soldier? 8000. I do believe that there is no radius mod, so apparently radius boosted units, especially in the health department, probably to make battles last longer. And it's kind of a problem for some of our modifications as 140, 23. 140, 23. Even though this seems to be normal. 8100. So maybe it is indeed balanced. I'm just not used to ranged units having so little health and infantry units having so much, but it does make sense. Bayonet rifle. Missile strength. Okay. Weak against armor. Armor piercing missile. Decent melee combatant. Expandable. Expensive. Let's go for archer. Okay. We're going for swordsman. Even though technically we already have anti-infantry. So maybe we should go for spearman. Yeah, global, we're not going to do anything here. And then we're just going to see the global 3 panel.
Yes.
Okay, nobody wants to trade with us. Non-aggressive pact, Ostermark, sure. Who else? Grand Duchy of Midden. Bonus Dotbringer, my friend, of course. Hello there. County of Stirland, yes. Wissenland with Eben van Liebwitz, sure. The Talabekland with Helmut Feuerbach. Also, oh, trade agreement, yes. Perfect. A Grand Barony of Hochland. Sure. We should also have a modification. Something that always bothered me. We are the Emperor, right? We are the Empire. So naturally we should have trading going on with a certain hunter far across in Lustria. And that should work right now. We should have trading partner called Klangaustok. Yes. Nice. The Hans Marshall's expedition, perfect. This makes sense. And of course also City of Suttenberg. Ah, nice. Golden-headed... Is he a sorcerer or is he a wizard? Not sure, does Warhammer differentiate between sorcerers and wizards? Anyway, that's fine. Quick deal, nothing here. Alright, now we're just going to end the round. Also, for some odd reason, via restarting the game, I kind of fixed this whole micro lag issue. At least I believe. Oh, no, I didn't. I mean, at least here's a heavy lag occasionally. Now it's gone because I'm looking at it. What is this, Windows? How do you? I look at the bug and suddenly it disappears, and when I not look there, it's there. I mean, what? Eilhart. I hope that the garrison off the entire Empire garrison. I hope that radius expanded on all of that and improved. Oh, it seems that they improved them. Oh, that's soldier, nice. Yeah, I do have a modification that adds one of many new custom unit models to garrisons, Empire garrisons. Alright, the Empire of Man. Archers. Archers have been fielded by the Empire since time immemorial. Archer units are often irregular bands of hunters and trappers grouped together to form their own regiments, ready to answer the call to arms at any given moment, where their tracking, scouting and advanced archery skills will be put to best use. Armed with bows and swords, these warriors are adept at luring their quarry into lethal ambushes, so the full might of an imperial army can utterly destroy them. Archers are adaptable, often forming a loose skirmish screen before falling back behind their army's ranks when the enemy approaches. Alright. Oh, state troops. Yes, we did get state troops. Right, they count as state troops, and because of Karl Franz, state troops are buffed.
Yes.
Yeah, he has an ability called... where is that one? State troop, hold the line, wound... and maybe it's even... let me go into the details. No, that's not right. Traits Emperor... right, there it is. Attribute, power of state troops. And Pillar of the Empire. And that should probably... yes, here. Base weapon damage, melee defense, melee attack. So our state troops are buffed, which makes sense simply because they serve the Emperor. So, state troops. Every province and city-state in the Empire has its own standing army of professional soldiers, equipped and maintained at the expense of that realm. These brave troops are armed with a wide variety of weapons, from spears to handguns, but they're all known collectively as state troops. State troops wear the traditional colors of their province or city, bright uniforms with a mix of badges, hats, and campaign symbols. There are no strict rules governing how these are worn, and so it is common to find great variation between regiments, although a soldier always endeavors to display his homeland's colors somewhere on his person. For example, a Midlander would include something blue in his uniform, perhaps wearing a blue jacket, tying off his breeches with blue ribbons, or simply sporting an enormous blue feather in his cap. There are some notable exceptions though, such as the Scarlet Guard of Stierland and the Hochland Black Shields, who are just a few of the many famous regiments in the Empire that eschew the colors of their province in favor of their own distinctive uniforms. State troops are paid as full-time professional soldiers, ready to answer the call to arms at all times. In addition to forming a standing army to repel enemy attack, state troops also serve as city guards, the fire watch, and the enforcers of the law. However, most of the time, these soldiers spend their days drilling and training with various weapons to the barked instructions of grim-faced sergeants and veteran marksmen. Every state trains its regiments to fight together, providing each other with mutual protection on the battlefield. State regiments often march to battle with detachments of differently armed troops to aid them. These detachments form up close to their regimental units, where they guard vulnerable flanks and provide battlefield support, either by joining their regimental units in the bloody melee of close combat, or by showering oncoming enemies with missile fire. Swordsmen fight shoulder to shoulder with spearmen, the close-range parries and ripostes of swords complementing the longer reach of the spear. Handgunners and crossbowmen fell their foes with withering volleys of fire, but should a foe survive through such salvos, a detachment of halberdiers will bravely intercept them, cutting them down with heavy-bladed polearms. I mean, as long as you're not on the wrong end of the polearm. Polearms sound great. Wardens of the Empire. Oh, there's even an upgrade path here. Oh, that's mildly interesting. Templars of Sigmar, Empire Rangers. Yeah, this upgrade mod has a lot of compatibility with a lot of other submods, or other modifications that add custom units in total. Nice. Alright. Oh, there's the crossbowman. Oh, nice. Huntsman, Empire Archer. Nice, so we can upgrade our archers. That is beautiful. So we're definitely going to go for more archers. So we can go for Huntsman. And our Empire Rangers. Ooh. Oh, look at my boys. Oh my goodness. Okay. Uberstrike. Can we recruit? First, mod configuration tool. Oh, yeah, that's extremely powerful. I haven't looked into that yet. Camera settings. Most important thing, your faction animation fastest. And goodbye. So, can we... Movement power 25. But we can reach them. We should be able to reach them in next round.
I command here.
If I go further, can we still recruit? Yes, we can. Okay. So we just need 25% or something. 27. Perfect. And of course we're going for more archers. And what about the swordsman? What? Unit upgrades. Swordsman. Okay, spearman. Spearman. Halberdier. Okay, yeah, we do need a couple halberdiers. And we don't really need great swords. We already have them. So let's go for spearman. 2. That's fine. State Road Empire Archers, perfect. Let's see our diplomacy. Oh, Clan Glint Sagas. My dwarvy friends. I also need to break a lance concerning the new Lord of the Rings series made by Amazon. And even though in lore sense they changed the story somewhat, I mean it doesn't really fit that Galadriel is Numenor now. And where's her husband, and she should already have a daughter who will wed Elrond and all of that? Okay, odd. And I believe, and I'm pretty sure that Halbrand will be Sauron. I mean, suddenly extremely diplomatic sometimes, extremely ferocious if necessary, extremely clever. He's playing his own game. This seems like Sauron, and I'm pretty sure Adar. Spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. Don't listen into the next 30 seconds. Episode 1, 2, 3, or 4. And this Adar, father Elvish, right? It's probably just the Dark Elf, a first generation elf, I guess. And apparently he's transforming the Southlands into Mordor, which is kind of interesting. And but something that Amazon did very well, very well, is orc design. I mean, elf design. I mean, the armor, our elven armors, they look ridiculous. Especially the ceremonial armor that Galadriel and companions wore when they ventured to Valinor. And the elves in general don't look like elves. Why do they all have short hair? I mean, there are a lot of people who are racist. Oh my goodness! An elf with a darker skin tone. Oh my goodness, how terrible. I don't really care about that. In the sense of lore, it's a bit odd, since we do have somewhat of Southlands with Rune and Khan and regions where darker skin tone would make more sense. But at the end of the day, it's okay if Amazon wants to include all the kinds of actors, not just based on their skin color. The problem is, yes, The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson trilogy and how it was made by Tolkien and how the characters were described, it's mainly about fair white people. So if Amazon says, okay, that's the source material, but there are so many good actors, and we don't want to not use them just because they have a darker skin tone, that's totally fine. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Hollywood trying to forcefully change a role. There are people on the internet calling it blackwashing. So if you, for example, have a classic look of a character, then Hollywood comes and changes that character. So he's effectively played by an actor with a darker skin tone, not because of the actor itself or of his skill, no, but as a political message, because every important person then blah 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 needs to be changed. This line I don't like, but again, the line that Amazon apparently went where they said, we don't really care about that, so if we have a good actor and he fits the role somewhat, let's do it. And that's totally fine. Beside that, the looks themselves, the short hair, the clothes, the way the actors act, not because of their skill, but because of how they have been told to act. It's a bit odd. The elves don't really feel like elves. Numenor is fine as of now, even though I'm a bit surprised that they went for a Numenor Trump. That was a bit odd. with his speech against the evil elves who took away their jobs. I didn't really expect that in the Tolkien lore, and a lot of people on the internet came and said, this is not lore accurate, why would the humans say that? But then again, it's extremely lore accurate, simply because we know that the Númenóreans were about to hate the elves, and obviously a bit of propaganda and a bit of lies and a bit of stirring up people is very lore accurate. I mean, after all, Numenor ventured, they made a giant fleet and tried to invade the land of the gods, and as punishment, their entire island was swept away and they were all killed by a tsunami because the Valar were like, what? Why are you attacking us? Obviously, because Sauron had riled them up, but aside from that, it's not lore inaccurate if someone is saying stuff that's not true. Because not every information that a character in a story, in a fictional story, uses must be accurate to the lore, simply because in the lore, this character maybe is wrong. Take, for example, Stargate or Star Trek. If a character says something that is wrong about a ship, that doesn't mean that the lore itself is the problem. It's just the character. Maybe the character is uneducated. Maybe he doesn't know better. Maybe it's wrong on purpose. So don't go into that line whenever something happens that's not entirely lore accurate. You always have to look at the character. Maybe it was caused by bad education, or maybe it was on purpose. And this also gives a bit of depth to a franchise, if done right. Of course, there can always be script writers who have no idea about the law and they write bullshit down and they don't even think about, oh, maybe this person didn't really know about it. So that's it can be very dangerous, especially if you talk about Lord of the Rings, because obviously Lord of the Rings it's a fantasy Bible, and if you stray away from source material, people are going to be they're going to be angry. But something that people tend to forget, I remember back in the day when Lord of the Rings came out, there was a shitload of hate on the there wasn't really World Wide Web back then, but the reception of fans, the feedback, was terrible. I mean, Peter Jackson changed so much. He even changed major story points. And people are somewhat glorifying the Peter Jackson trilogy as extremely lore-friendly when it wasn't really. I mean, let's recapitulate a bit about major things that Peter Jackson changed. What did he change? First, he replaced Glorfindel with Arwen. Frodo wasn't saved by Arwen, he was saved by Glorfindel, a mighty elven lord, the one who fought a Balrog, who got to Mando's halls and who got released and brought back to life. And I mean, my goodness, that's a major thing, really. Peter Jackson went along and said Arwen is now important. Now she's a warrior lady, super cool Aragorn lover. In the books, the love story between Arwen and Aragorn is maybe depicted in 2 sentences. Arwen loved Aragorn, of course in fancy Tolkien words described, and the elven star blah 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 was there. That's it. There wasn't, and she went to Frodo and they talk and she rescued him, and here we have a scene where she talks to her father and to Aragorn and blah blah blah. All of these scenes that gave depth to this relationship between Arwen and Aragorn, or Arwen and other people, that was total. That was artificially created by Peter Jackson and his crew. It was done well, but it wasn't in the book. So, Of course, we have Tom Bombadil, who was completely cut out. A lot of people are fine with that. They say Tom Bombadil isn't important. I disagree. I believe that the Tom Bombadil scenes were incremental into boosting the confidence and strength of the hobbits, knowing that there was incorruptible evil in the world. Good in the world. So, incorruptible good in the world. Completely unaffected by evil. A master beyond masters, secluded where evil cannot thrive. A master that cannot be controlled even by the ring of power. I mean, that message alone, some people do not understand how that would have affected the motivation and resilience, the mental strength of the hobbits in the face of absolute darkness. If a Dark Lord rises with millions of orcs and everybody despairs, meeting such a person will boost your confidence. So that is, in my opinion, very important. Peter Jackson was like, nope, we don't have time for that. He also, a major change to the books, Peter Jackson made up the elves fighting in Helm's Deep. Haldir and the elves, there is no Haldir and the elves in the books. That's a made up story. There were no elves fighting with the Man of Rohan in Helm's Deep. That's a totally made up story. And that's a major change in the story. But it was well made. But again, back when it was released, a lot of people shat on Peter Jackson. They were like, what? What is Haldir doing in Rohan? What? An army of elves magically appeared? This isn't book material. So be a bit careful of your Judge Amazon's Lord of the Rings. Also, in general, Peter Jackson changed the timeline of events massively when they happened. And he also changed a lot of events. For example, the Wrath of Caradhras. I mean, he basically turned it into a wizard duel, where Saruman stood in a tower and then Gandalf tried to him back. That didn't really work out. And that's kind of made up. And of course, the entire, the first book, of course, you have to remind yourself, there are 6 books. Some people say there are 3 Lord of the Rings books, but that's not true. Every major Lord of the Rings book is in truth separated into 2 different books. So Tolkien in total wrote 6 books, and he always paired 2 books into one sort of chapter. He totally changed the breaking of the Fellowship. In the books, the Fellowship knows that they're being hunted, and they're not surprised. They're expecting an attack. And Frodo even has a lengthy conversation with Aragorn, where Aragorn gives Frodo his blessing to go alone. Frodo didn't just vanish, nobody know why, what happened. No. In the books, they have a conversation about that. It's planned to a degree, and all of that is... Peter Jackson didn't really have the time or will to go into that, and that is also a major change in the story and the motivation, Aragorn and Frodo and their relationship. Also, the entire end mood, the treason of Isengard with Saruman was completely changed. In motivation and in tone, and the ends acted completely different in the movie. I mean, the character of the Fellowship members in total were heavily changed. I mean, I did see Peter Jackson once talking about that. He said that they wanted to reflect the seeming corruption by the One Ring on the Fellowship members, but even with a good reason, it's still a massive change from the source material. I mean, they basically changed massive personality traits of the Fellowship members. That's just what? Especially Gandalf. Gandalf has another personality in the books. The movie Gandalf doesn't really compare to the book Gandalf. And if we talk about changing the motivation and characters in general, we also have to talk about Elrond. Elrond in the books is a steward of hope and trust. He believes in humanity, and in the movies, he's a PTSD elf that lost all hope. I mean, what? That's also a major change from source material. If Amazon would do that, people would go batshit crazy. What? He is a hopeful dude. Why is he no hope now? Yeah, Peter Jackson did that too. But again, the question is, how do you do it? Is it well made? And apparently it is. Peter Jackson trilogy is... Not apparently, it is well made, and most of the changes are great, even though some aren't that great. And if we talk about PTSD, behavior, we have to talk about Aragorn. I mean, in the books, Aragorn embraces his entire destiny. He starts the journey of the Fellowship with Andoril, the Flame of the West, the sword that in the books later in the movie gets forged because Arwen went into tears and she went to her daddy. Oh, Ada, I made my choice. Trust. So there was a bit of a redemption arc in the personality of Elrond in the movie. And in the books, that's not... That didn't happen at all. Aragorn in the books has a firm resolve, and he knows of his destiny in Gondor. And Peter made him basically into a kingship PTSD wreck. Who doesn't like it, who doesn't want it, who fears it. And who needs his girlfriend and stepdad to convince him to make it to royalty. So that's also made a change, character of a fellowship member compared to the books. And in total, Peter made so many changes to the source material, as I already said, some for good, some for the worse. And sometimes the changes can indeed be beneficial, but sometimes, of course, they're just a terrible shame. And I want that to be kept in mind, that we judge Amazon and their series fairly. Same way we judge Peter Jackson trilogy, not as a glorified monstrosity of grandeur, which it is indeed. But we all really came to that conclusion after, I'd say, 6 years of Hollywood releasing absolute crap. And then suddenly people realized, oh my goodness, this was a solid trilogy. Maybe it is the only solid trilogy, so let's call it a masterpiece. And it kind of was. It kind of is still. But then again, source material changes were present. So again, please do not glorify Peter Jackson's trilogy and forget about the lore changes and then shit on Amazon for changing the lore. Of course, there's always the question, what kind of lore changes do we want? For example, one of my favorite book series of all time, A Sword of Truth. There was a television series that completely shat on the entire lore. You see, in the first book, there is an enemy, a mighty enemy sorcerer, and in the television series, they suddenly made him, the brother of the main protagonist. So they completely changed the structure, the relations between characters of adversaries, and that didn't work at all. So those kind of changes are just batshit crazy and stupid. And the actors of Kaelin and Amnello did an awesome job, and also Richard. They looked awesome. But aside from that, the television series was kind of terrible. Also because they changed lore in such a dramatic way without any justification. And that's enough talk about Lord of the Rings now. I just saw become vessel. Wait, what? Wait, what? They're willing to become our vessels? I don't mind. Okay. I do not expect to get vessels in round 2 or 3. But then again, the Empire is mighty indeed. Who are you? Oh, Eldurthur. Oh, he's powerful. So we can just end the round. What is of course a viable critic to the Amazon series in terms of lore. The not only relationship between Galadriel and Elrond, also the fact that Galadriel was one of the elves that actually founded the entire region where they're now building a tower. They completely changed the Galadriel character to make her into a main character who's somewhat estranged from her people and going on a solo quest where I still say it's definitely Sauron. It's the only thing that makes sense. The dude that fell from the sky, that doesn't make any sense. If Sauron was the great deceiver, he was the one who corrupted the people, and if you want to secretly corrupt people, falling from the sky as a fiery asteroid is not the best way of not announcing yourself. And this other, it's too simple. And it doesn't really give me the vibes of a Maiar. He gives more of the vibes of a previous elven lord or something, maybe a noble citizen. So I guess it's just a dark elf. I'm not sure if you know, but in Tolkien lore, all orcs, you might have noticed orcs have pointy ears. And who are the only beings you know with pointy ears? Obviously elves. The first generation orcs were actually elves that were tortured and mutilated by the Dark Lords. And these first generation orcs still look a bit like elves. And all the orcs you know from Lord of the Rings, you have to keep in mind Lord of the Rings plays 3,000 years later than what we do now, even though that's a big problem with the Amazon Lord of the Rings series. They're trying to cramp 3,000 years of history, the Second Age, into the span of, what, 30 or 40 years? It doesn't really work very well. Amazon is trying to change lore where they shouldn't. That's a problem. How's the second Wilhelm? Ooh. Yeah, we're going to read that, but that's going to be a part of the next episode. So, sorry, Carl. Kind of got delayed by talking about Lord of the Rings. No, Warhammer is still great, right? But not as great as Lord of the Rings.